everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's summer, and many of you may have plans to travel internationally. Well, we're excited to announce today, so is Northspyre. Today, we're introducing Multicurrency Project Support, which comes with new functionality designed to help real estate development teams manage projects in the currencies in which these projects actually operate. And while multi-currency may not sound like the most glamorous topic on your summer schedule, it becomes very important very quickly when you're managing major developments across countries, regions, and business units. Why? Because this is not a story about currency symbols. It's a story about whether a project can live in the same operating system as the rest of your portfolio. So over the next 30 minutes, we'll explain the problem, show you the product, and walk through what this means for enterprise developers and corporate real estate teams managing projects across regions. I am Roger Muckenfuss Jr., and I lead revenue here at Northspyre, and that includes our sales and customer success organizations. Now, I've spent much of my career at the intersection of technology, real estate, and the built environment. Before working in technology, I trained and worked as an architect, so I understand that real estate projects are not abstract rows in a database. They're complex physical assets involving budgets, schedules, designers, contractors, capital partners, internal leaderships, and hundreds of other interconnected decisions. Now, in my role here at Northspyre, I spend a great deal of time on two types of conversations, with organizations evaluating whether Northspyre fits how they build, and with customers telling us what they need the platform to do next. Multicurrency has come up repeatedly in both. So today I'll help frame the release from the business and operational perspective, why it matters, what problems it removes, and how it supports a more scalable way of managing international projects.
I'm Vaughn Sulit, and I'm an engineer at Northspyre who helped lead the development of our multi-currency capabilities. My background has crossed both product and engineering, which means I tend to look at software from two directions at once: how the underlying system needs to work, and how the experience needs to make sense to the person using it. That perspective was particularly important here because this was never simply about adding a new symbol or formatting option. We needed to make currency a meaningful part of the project itself while preserving the workflows customers already know. I'll walk you through the design principles behind the release and how the experience begins when a project is created.
I'm Dennis Leacock, a senior engineer at Northspyre and one of the engineers who led the implementation of multicurrency. A major part of my role is translating complex financial and operational requirements into a product behavior that is dependable, scalable, and consistent. For this release, my work focused on carrying currency context through the product across project financials, invoice workflows, commitments, approvals, and portfolio views. During the demonstration, I'll show how the operating currency decision follows the user through the system and why those consistency rules matter.
Vaughn and Dennis will do most of the driving today because they understand both what's on the screen and what's underneath it. But before we get to the product, let's start with the real customer problem. When software companies talk about international functionality, the conversation starts often with currency symbols and formatting. That's not where we began. We began with a blocked project. Let me explain. Imagine a development organization based in the United States. Its process runs on Northspyre, so budgets, invoices, commitments, approvals, reporting, all in one place. Then the firm wins a project in Toronto. The deal pencils, the team's ready, the vendor's invoices are in Canadian dollars. And then someone asks a very simple question: where does the project live? Well, until now, the honest answer would have been workarounds. Run the project in spreadsheets next to Northspyre, relabel dollar figures and keep the real currency in your head or in a footnote, stand up a second system for non-US work, or ask everyone involved to remember what the numbers are supposed to mean. The problem with all of this is that these approaches are not merely inconveniences. The problem is that the organization's single source of truth is now undermined. So let's explore this evolution in 3 stages. The first is the legacy stage, or before Northspyre. There, project financials are fragmented across emails, documents, live in different folders, live in different spreadsheets, and probably use different approval processes, all in whatever currency each file happens to use. In the second stage, with Northspyre, but before multi-currency, that work becomes organized and fundamentally governed. But the platform has assumed that the project operates in US dollars. Now, for non-US dollar denominated projects, the team is still pushed back towards workarounds at the exact moment it needs more consistency. So with multi-currency project support, the Toronto project can be run in Canadian dollars, the London project in pounds, and the Nashville project in US dollars. Same platform, same workflows, same standard of record. Each project operates in the currency in which it actually works. For a large developer or a Fortune 500 corporate real estate team, this matters for 3 reasons. Firstly, operational consistency. A local project team should be able to work in the correct currency without creating a separate operating model. Second, financial clarity. Users should understand the currency context whenever they encounter a budget, commitment, an invoice, or a report. And thirdly, scalable governance. A global portfolio cannot depend on institutional memory. One project may be manageable through conversation, but 50 projects across several currencies cannot depend on someone remembering what every number was supposed to mean. The thesis for this release is 1 sentence. Manage every project in the currency in which it operates. Vaughn, let's talk about the product principles behind that.
Thanks, Roger. Before I open the product, I want to give you 3 principles behind the release because they explain nearly every design decision you are about to see. First, currency is a core project attribute. It is not merely a display setting or a label. It is selected during project setup, and it governs the project's financial context from that point forward. Second, one project, one currency. Every project operates in one fixed currency. Budgets, invoices, commitments, approvals, and reporting all speak the same financial language. That keeps the project record consistent from creation through closeout. Third, clarity over conversion. Northspyre will not quietly translate amounts from one currency into another, and it will not add unlike currencies together into a total that appears precise but is not meaningful. Where projects operate in different currencies, we keep the reporting honest and separated. A portfolio number should never require a mental footnote. With those principles in mind, let's get into the product. I'll start where your team would encounter this functionality, setting up a new project. The fixed project currency model and the emphasis on clear, segmented reporting are central to the Phase 1 design. This is the project setup experience. Project currency defines the operational currency for the project's financial activity. I'm setting up a new project for Atlas Global Development. This is the Toronto Innovation Campus, a major development operating in Canada. As part of project setup, we now have a clear decision, the project's operating currency. I'll open the selector and choose Canadian dollars. Because this project's vendors, contracts, budgets, and financial workflows operate in CAD, the project itself should operate in CAD. One important design decision to call out here is that once any financial data is recorded in the project, the currency becomes read-only. That is deliberate. The financial history of a project, every budget entry, invoice, commitment, and approval is recorded within that operating context. Allowing the currency to change midway through the project would rewrite the meaning of every historical number. So you said it once, and Northspire preserves the consistency of the record from there. Before this release, the project's currency might live in a naming convention, an implementation document, or simply in the knowledge of the team. Now, it is explicit system data attached directly to the project. Choose the currency once, carry the context everywhere. That is one decision at project setup, but the real value is what that decision replaces and what it enables across the rest of the project. Roger?
It is worth pausing on what that one selector replaces, because the cost of the old way was rarely one dramatic failure. It was a steady tax. A second system means duplicate effort. A relabeled workaround means someone is maintaining a transition layer in their head. And in both cases, the portfolio's single source of truth has an asterisk attached to it. With Multicurrency Project Support, the Toronto project and the Nashville project live on the same platform, follow the same workflows, and hold the same standard of record, each in the currency it actually works. No second system, no asterisk. And importantly, as Dennis is about to show, the team does not need to learn an entirely different product to get there.
This is the active project environment, where the team manages the project financial activity. Here's the Toronto Innovation Campus after setup. First, in the project settings, we can clearly see that the project operates in Canadian dollars. The setting is visible, but is protected from mid-project changes. That gives the team one clear operating truth. Before, a user visiting project settings may have had no reliable way to confirm whether a dollar sign meant United States dollars or Canadian dollars. After, the project's operating currency is explicit, visible, and fixed. Now let's look at what that means in the day-to-day workflow. I'm on the project budget. The first thing to notice is that users always know where they stand. Amounts are formatted and presented in the project's operating currency, Canadian dollars. There's no ambiguity about what a number represents, whether it is a line item, a commitment, or a project total. Now let's move to invoice entry. This is one of the most important points where financial data enters the project. Because this project operates in Canadian dollars, invoice activity aligns with that project currency. That alignment may sound like a small detail. It is not. A US dollar amount entered into a Canadian dollar project, or the reverse, is exactly the kind of quiet error that may not surface until weeks later during a draw, reconciliation, or reporting deadline. That same context continues through commitments and approvals. The project's financial workflows all speak the same currency. And notice what has not changed. The budget page works the way it always has. Invoice entry works the way it always has. Approvals work the way they always have. If your team already knows Northspyre, it already knows how to run a Canadian dollars, Great British pounds, or euro project. The workflow is familiar. The currency is simply correct. Previously, a team might export information, relabel columns, add explanatory notes, or rely on someone to catch a mismatch manually. Now the system carries the currency rules through the workflow. Instead of clearing up currency confusion downstream, Northspyre prevents it upstream. Roger, I think this is a good place to pause because this is one of those moments where a demo can almost look too simple.
That's exactly right. It's easy to watch a demo where nothing dramatic happens and miss the point, because nothing dramatic happening is the point. The expensive errors are often the quiet ones, like a draw package stalling because two numbers don't reconcile, a lender questioning a report, and an afternoon disappears while the team determines whether a figure was in dollars or pounds. Every one of these situations begins with a moment where the currency context was in someone's head instead of in the system. Multicurrency moves that context into the system. Set once, enforce at entry, make it visible throughout the workflow. Your team's judgment stays exactly where it belongs, and the bookkeeping ambiguity goes away.
Now we are moving from one project into the portfolio. Northspyre Enterprise has projects operating in US dollars, Canadian dollars, pounds, and euros. Once projects operate in different currencies, portfolio reporting has to become smarter and more honest. Here, I can filter the portfolio by project currency. I'll select Canadian dollars. The view now narrows to Canadian dollar projects, which means I am now looking at like-for-like financial information. I can clear that and filter to Great British Pounds to focus on the United Kingdom portfolio. The same principle applies. Here is the important decision behind this. Northspyre deliberately does not combine unlike currencies into a single local currency total. 40 million US dollars plus 30 million Canadian dollars does not equal a meaningful $70 million portfolio. It creates a number that means nothing, but looks like it means something. Where currencies differ, Northspyre keeps local currency reporting separate and gives users the ability to review projects with a shared currency context. Before this functionality, an enterprise team may have exported the portfolio, separated the projects manually, and maintained a different spreadsheet tab for each currency. Now, that segmentation begins inside the platform where projects and underlying workflows are already managed. That is not a limitation we accepted, it's a standard we chose. Your portfolio numbers should never require a mental footnote. So that workflow is straightforward. Set the project's operating currency at creation. Carry that context consistently across the project. Prevent conflicting currency assumptions at entry. Review portfolio information within the appropriate currency context.
So let's step back from the screens and talk about how all this creates value. Scenario number one, a global real estate developer. And here we're talking about a developer that operates offices in, let's say, New York, Toronto, London, and Frankfurt. Now, each local team manages projects in the currency relevant to its market, but leadership wants one common operating platform and one consistent development process. Multicurrency will allow the organization to standardize how projects are managed without having to pretend every project operates in the same financial environment. The business value is not merely local formatting, it's the ability to scale a common operating model into additional markets. Scenario number two, a large Fortune 500 corporate real estate team. And here we have a global company delivering, let's say, offices, manufacturing facilities, laboratories, logistics, and data centers across several countries. The corporate real estate team needs governance and visibility, and execution may be handled by regional project managers, local consultants, internal finance teams, and outside vendors. Now, when currency is explicit within the project, each stakeholder has clear context. When the portfolio can be segmented by currency, leadership can review relevant groups of projects without creating misleading mixed currency contexts. Scenario number three, a company that's expanding into a new market. And this could be a US-based developer entering the Canadian market. The company does not want to adopt a separate project management system for each geography. It wants to bring its existing processes, controls, and reporting standards into the new market. Multicurrency removes the structural barrier to doing that. So for enterprise organization, this release supports 4 objectives. Standardization without false uniformity. Every team can use the same platform and the same core workflows, with each project reflects in its actual operating currency. Number 2, it's the end of the second system. International work no longer needs to sit outside the platform governing the rest of the portfolio. Number 3, reduced financial ambiguity. Currency contact moves from institutional memory into the system. And lastly, a stronger foundation for scale. As the organization expands into new markets, it can extend a proven development management process rather than creating another silo. And all this aligns directly with Northspire's broader purpose, helping development organizations work more efficiently, reduce financial risk, and scale their operating practices across projects and portfolios.
My takeaway is that multicurrency begins with one clear product decision. Each project needs a reliable operating currency. That decision happens at project setup, and it gives the rest of the product a consistent foundation.
And from the business perspective, the takeaway is this. A global operating model should not require teams to choose between standardization and local relevance. Your Toronto project in Canadian dollars, your London project in pounds, your Nashville project in US dollars. Same workflows, same source of truth. One platform for every project market. Development does not stop at the border, and now neither does Northspyre. Manage every project in the currency in which it operates. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll use our remaining time to answer a few questions. We have been talking to customers about multicurrency for some time, so we already know many of the questions you may want to ask.
No, and that is deliberate. The operating currency governs the project's financial record, so changing it midway through the project would compromise historical consistency. It is selected during project setup and becomes read-only once any financial data has been recorded. Each project operates in one fixed currency. That keeps budgets, invoices, commitments, approvals, and reporting consistent from end to end. The portfolio can contain projects in several currencies, but each individual project speaks one financial language.
For this release, the focus is on clarity over conversion. Northspyre does not quietly translate amounts between currencies or add unlike local currencies into a combined total. Instead, the portfolio allows users to filter and review like-for-like information.
The answer, no. Northspyre is the operating platform for real estate development management, and your accounting system remains responsible for formal ledger-level accounting and related currency requirements. Northspire's role is to make project currency clear and consistent throughout the project delivery.
Your existing way of working remains familiar. What you gain is the option to create and manage a non-USD project when the next opportunity appears across a border.
Well, that would be organizations that are already operating internationally, and enterprise developers expanding into new markets, and corporate real estate teams managing capital programs across multiple countries. All will see the clearest immediate benefit.